Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So, have we been missing the point? Are many of us directing our energy at the wrong area? Basically, is there a blind spot in the feedback that we give about the game? So, going over my own channel and much of the online discussion, I've noticed one major trend. We love to talk about game systems. I mean, we really love it, from RNG to gearing to difficulty levels. We talk a hell of a lot about ideas and really abstract stuff, which is great. But there's a little bit of a blind spot, and that's just game content. It's kind of hilarious, really. The places that you go and the stuff that you do really does form the core of what a game is. Who cares about Titan forging or echoes of battle if you don't have a cool place to show off the new power that you've earned, a new challenge to overcome, or a new way to experience the game? This is really something that's very important in an MMORPG. It's one of the few genres where your goal is to design a game that somebody basically never needs to take a break from because they've ran out of things to do, or at least it's going to be a game designed kind of against that. Overcoming this by creating lots of new content isn't really enough. Players chew through content faster than it can be created. Now, this is fine with, a new RPG or an action adventure or something like that, but it's less okay if the dev's goal is to keep you hooked for months on end. Therefore, gameplay systems have to operate on top of the content that they've actually made in order to make that content last the distance. And what I'm going to talk about today is how I think we've focused so much on those systems to the point where we've lost sight of what's arguably more important: the actual content that those systems are operating on, basically the stuff that we're doing. Now, for the record, Legion has got some brilliant content. There's a cool world, brilliant dungeons, brilliant raids, loads of great systems as well, stuff like Mythic Plus, which I think is brilliant, fantastic for the game. It's also quite hard for 7.2 to appraise this topic right now. There's a bunch of story content that still has to unlock, but really that's more one-off stuff, and what this video is about is the quality of the content that the game systems really exist on top of, and less about the one-off narrative stuff that you do just because Blizzard happened to be telling a story that you want to hear. Patch 7.2 really did bring this entire discussion to the forefront for me. I found myself doing guide videos on new farming spots, discussions about the systems, but not really talking about the content itself. Is the island cool? Is there a lot of new stuff to do on that island? Does the patch break new ground and change up how we play the game? Are there new ideas being shown? Taking such a systems-oriented outlook meant that the content itself wasn't really talked about as much. Invasions. They're basically 6 to 8 world quests in the same manner that we're already used to, followed up by a scenario that is admittedly quite cool. They're not really a new way to play the game though, are they? It's just world quests. The same really that we've had since patch 7.0. Now let's look at Nether Shards. Is there much content there? Well, I think that it's totally fine to have the odd grind in an MMO. It's kind of just, something with the territory. But is it, it's something that should be more of a side activity rather than the main event, which currently is something that it kind of feels like. As for the rest of the Broken Shore, well, the buildings are mostly a collection of buffs. As you know, I think like the artifact challenges that you get from the Mage Tower are brilliant bits of content, and I'd love to see more stuff along those lines, but past that, well, not much to the buildings, honestly. Admittedly, it's nice having the buffs, but that sort of is it. The world quests in the island, well, they're world quests. Bar some of the more creative ones, they do feel just like the invasion ones, and therefore they feel just like the ones that happened at launch. Is it really new content? Does it actually feel new to play? And the rest of the stuff in the island, well, I think it's a nice sprinkling of content. We've got rares, brilliant. Chests, also great. But none of those things are core content, especially when there are so many other games to play that are packed full of just sort of new, high-quality content that you can go and enjoy that's not really designed to just be, repeated all the time. Now, I suppose when you look through a patch, this patch, you see a few systems really trying to stretch a small amount of content a very long way. Now, this is something you always have to do in an MMO due to its nature, but I think it gets to the point where the amount of content resting at the core of that equation simply isn't enough, or simply is not inventive enough. I think it is also the case that Blizzard are not great at pushing the boat when it comes to the interplay between content and systems. Oftentimes, systems exist on top of content that really the content is just the same every time, existing in a super static nature. Now, if the future of World of Warcraft is to continue in this really systems-driven direction, then they need to work on building content that naturally lends itself to being modified by the interactions of the systems built alongside with it, rather than just being static each time. So what does this actually mean? Well, take the Broken Shore as an example. There are good ideas with the Centenax, especially in how it's player-driven. Now that could be taken a lot further and made into core content. Now this isn't to say that I'm the guy with the answers. Obviously the Blizzard team have to deal with the realities of implementing a system. They've got to get it working with their server tech. And they are also dealing with, development timelines and all those various other problems, which mean that good ideas sometimes can't just be made. Now, throwing ideas together, of course, for a YouTube video, that's dead easy. The whole point here is putting them into the game is a hell of a lot harder, so we do need to cut them some slack. That said, if I was designing an island, the first thing that I would do is work out what is my core design pillar. What is the core thing that I really want to evoke with this content? Well, in this case, it's supposed to be us battling a whole bunch of Legion forces for the island, and as they show in that cinematic, it's some sort of renewed invasion. Okay, so we want to make it feel like a war of some sort. That really should be a core part of our overall design. Now, Blizzard have nailed that aesthetically. The art department always does do a great job, but it hasn't really translated to gameplay for me. What is a war not? Static. Wars are not static, it's a struggle between two sides involving gaining territory, losing it, lines are bolstered when they falter, weak points are exploited, and overall it's a battle of attrition at the very core. That's what a war kind of is like. Now, how could we apply that to the Broken Shore to make the content actually feel more engaging to people? Well, the island is already split up into areas, so taking the war idea, let's just say that it is a struggle for control of the island. Our base, as it currently stands, it just exists as it does now, but the Legion, let's just say, have fortified an area outside of the tomb. Okay, all the land in between that is an ever-shifting battlefield. You have objectives scattered around it, be they defensive areas, camps, towers, miniature bases, portals, all the stuff like that. Then the in-game map reflects all of these, even including a sort of a frontline indicator showing how much of each subzone and all the different core objectives that are there. There would be NPCs rushing out of our base who would be contributing to keeping the fight alive. The tug of war would happen with players capturing bits of the map, eventually being pushed back, and dealing with all of the systemic interactions that would be involved with that. So, rare mobs, why just have them spawn in randomly and in a kind of a static nature for half an hour? How about you tie them into the subzones, making them mini-bosses that you need to kill in order to capture that zone? Okay, there's one idea. Perhaps having a few different types of rares, including ones that will spawn maybe in your back line to harass you, or specifically ones that are designed to attack a subzone that doesn't have many players in it. A core part of a system like this is making it feel like the hostile forces and therefore the game is responding to what the players do, in such a way that the players have to think about their gameplay and coordinate as a team, choosing their targets, stuff like that. On top of this, I would have mechanics such as targets of opportunity, rare events, times where, maybe a part of your line needs to be bolstered. Now, things like that could actually fill a similar niche to world quests, but it would be in a more dynamic manner that suits an MMO a lot better. All the while, you would of course be getting rewards, but unlike the current Centenax grinding system, there's a level of gameplay that goes above and beyond just killing enemies in the most efficient way possible. Ideally, there would be some sort of really cool reward for players making big progress, and ideally that would be a content reward, i.e. something to do, rather than just a heap of currency, which when we get down to it is interesting from a power perspective, but it doesn't really let you go and do a new thing. It's more fun to unlock, say, a new adventure to go on, as an example. Of course, we do need to think about the game in its current incarnation. This all would have been a lot easier in a pre-cross-realm world, but I think this example is less about something that should be put into the game and more about an example of what Blizzard should be thinking of when it comes to their content design. If they are to have a massive focus on systems, they really need to start making content that actually embraces that, and that's actually embracing the game that they want to make, and that they want us to continue playing. So that's it for this video. Basically, a different look at systemic content in the game. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm dead keen to see what sort of ideas you might have around this topic. But that's it for me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.